Hello everyone! It has been a bit more than 3 years now that Limbus was released. 2 years ago, I made a video after the ring sang incident, talking about how balancing gacha is something that pretty much doesn't exist. So while thinking back on it, I thought it'd be interesting to see how things evolved since then and look where we are at now, discussing stuff like Powercreep, status min-maxing, Teambuilding nowadays, the prevalence of mirror dungeons, Reflectrials appearing, plenty of nice things to talk about. Nice being relative. So let's start about Powercreep. The nice main topic. Does it even matter? Does it never end? Well, let's look at what happened. There were what I'd call 3 main instances of the walls of Powercreep being blatantly broken open. The first one, ring sang. I remember the drama. 2 years already. They tried out new designs with ring IDs based on negative statuses and offering coin reuses. However, the conditions were a bit too simple to attain, resulting in the higher end of the damage being accessible most of the time. This made it for a while the strongest idea available. Let's say for like a year, something like the Concealed Manager Dawn was released to become the best idea in Bleed. But not like you needed to play Ring Sang in Bleed, it just fit quite a few teams. Nowadays, would you all say Ring Sang is the strongest idea? Okay, a bit much. Top 10 then? I doubt it personally. Well, we have a nice sample then, right? I could even go back further and talk about W Dawn, but I don't know if I want to talk Hill of the Dead. After this event, ID's design tended to be way more similar, following a set template. 2 or 3 coins S1, often being 3 power plus 2 coins at 6 max to roll 15, skill 2s being 2 or 3 coins as well, rolling 22 often, and skill 3 more varied, but often max rolling into the 30. Only thing being skill 1 and 2 didn't necessarily get damage multipliers, yet. Back to our dramas. The second instance of hard Powercreep was the devil itself, Malfaust. So 1 year ago, already, Talisman Sinclair died so Malfaust could creep. Well, that was a trade-off. This time again, the conditions to attain her peak value were misaligned and it was way too easy. Like every turn easy. The worst part is, they wanted to fix it, but looking back, fixing it would just make it proc once every 2 turns instead, which, in today's standards, would still be pretty damn strong, and wouldn't remove the possibility of combo with Lord Lu skill 3. Well, she would need to stack slightly more first, or she would need to be with other ratios. Well, that's to say, the Powercreep was already happening, mistake or not. I mean, you can see it from other ratios. Finally, it was around that time as well that MD catering started to appear, with every ID under the moon getting 2 keywords conditionals. Coming back to this later. It's also around this period that damage multipliers started appearing way more on skill 1 and 2. The third instance, which wasn't followed with a drama, but acclamation and the sound of my sanity snapping, was with the index Nurse Father Yi Sang. Yep, there we go. We are already teetering the edge, but that was the final dive. All hell let loose. Yes, tigers, whatever. Generate 3 as much as you want, no problem, go ahead. Conditionals? Oh yeah, maybe, for a coin power of 2, if you like poise. You still get 12,000 damage multipliers regardless. So yeah, Nurse Fathers. And what followed? No, let's not talk about it. So we achieved the current peak of Powercreep, aka not caring much about the mechanics, skill bags rotation, keyword management, all that kind of thing. But you know, a peak only stays a peak if it goes back down on the other side. So I guess we'll keep having new picks. Aren't you glad? Well, I don't think I need to demonstrate my point so far. But what if I do? For fun, let's compare the numbers from IDs a few seasons ago with what we have now. I kept compiling the theoretical maximum damage output of IDs on their release, so I have somewhat reliable data. Don't worry, to make it fair, I use a very reliable random system, the MNG, Magnet Number Generator. So here are a few IDs. Let's start with the major offender, Ring Sang versus Ren Sang. Funny comparison. Both skill 2s can get very close, which for Ring Sang being his whole thing is quite worrying. And, well, don't look at the other skills. Ren Sang's Furioso being able to proc multiple times, plus his base skill 3, let's stop there. As a few notes, offense level are taken into account as well as best conditionals. So here we're taking all sides on Furioso, but even without it, it's still way stronger. Talking about major offenders and humiliation, Look at Steven Faust compared to Mao Faust. And that's only one skill tree. Okay, let's scale down a bit. A fun one. W Co-op Dawn versus Love and Hate. Man, that's what we call a downfall. Love and Hate having AoE regularly available just adds insult to injury. Alright, what fun stuff can I find? Oh, Somersault. Ley Lineage versus Thumb. It's funny to see that with In Memoriam, Somersault can rivalize with Thumb without shame. To claim the bone is still really strong, but with full AoE for both, Thumb still has the advantage. Oh, look at Middle East Cliff versus X Middle East Cliff. That's funny because here, Picot is at 0 HP for the percent increase, so the likely thing to happen is that you can almost half the damage. And in return, Middle is without counters. Yeah, no, let's move on. Let's finish with a recent one. Presence Rodion versus Ring. It's with 4 palette and homage, so you can reliably remove like 20% at best. It's still a crushing victory. Alright, so I think I don't need to show more, or even needed to show it at all. It has been pretty clear that Powercreep on the ID side has been ramping up, and we are at the stage where they probably don't care much about it. Well, I don't care anymore for sure, which is not really a good thing. Not caring, that is. The Ego side has been more interesting to follow, with very high power variations since the start of the game, and the balance still being followed due to the existence of a cost. I had a feeling that Ego's cost overall increased with time, so I tried to do some calculations. Here the median cost for Egos between Season 2 and 4, and Season 5 and 7. Of course, being based on their rank for fairness. I decided to add Season 1 only afterwards as well for comparison. So we can see a few things. First, the sample for some of those is very limited, which is why some like Season 5 plus die-in is less reliable with 3 Egos, and same for Teth or Season 2 4th die-ins being at 4. The hairs are the only reliable ones, having been added in high quantity in all periods, which does show a very slight increase. Otherwise, Valve are pretty similar if you remove the 2 7 cost ones, but that's mostly because there wasn't another 40 since Valve, which is still insane to think about. Man, Garden of Thorns. So in the end, there was a slight increase on hairs, which represent the majority of Egos we have now, but nothing majorly significant. I guess my impression was because most of the Egos we get now are hairs of Valves, which are inherently more costly. After checking back, there was also a slight increase in SP costs, most being at 20 before and now more around 25, but that's not too important, and I was too lazy after the previous one to make a full calculation. It's mostly noticeable for Zayn though, only 2 of them being above 10 SP at the start, and new ones all being between 15 to 20, which for Zayn can matter. The biggest difference between newer and older Egos are the designs, going mostly from clashing and utility to multi-con damage stuff, with utility less often. I already made a video on the topic, so I'm not gonna extend on it here. Alright, but now, what does it matter? We're going through the city, climbing the power ranking extremely fast. It's normal we're getting better stuff, right? Except that it's a low justification. It makes sense in a game like Ruina. You play the game, unlock better stuff, fight stronger opponents, and that's a reward and progress loop. We're in a live service. I don't unlock new stuff for beating Kanto 9. A new player going into the game has as much chance to pull for Mao Faust as for Kurokumo Rodion. I'll let you guess what face you would do on each of those extractions for the first time. Actually, a new player and a veteran will get the same thing from the extractions, the difference being the stuff they already have. And the good thing, well, bad rather, the older things are getting deprecated. What does it matter that I got all the IDs in the game if half of them are not relevant anymore? What, should I play Zvi Sinclair and Tremor? The old one, I mean. Outside of a challenge or because I like pain, there's not much of a reason. In fact, because the game was designed so it could be cleared with most comps, so you wouldn't need the new stuff, it trivializes the content if you have set stuff. And since it's not too hard to obtain, who wouldn't want to play with the shiny new toys? I don't say you have to play the best stuff to have fun in the game, but there's the notion of team building, and this has been ruined by Powercreep. Let's take some simple examples. You wanna build Rupture. There we go, it shows. Playing most of the older IDs would be shooting yourself in the foot. And it's not a question of IDs just being weaker, or rather new ones being stronger. It's a question of those IDs not having anything unique to them. And to demonstrate, there's actually one ID in Rupture that's weaker, but you could still realistically play. LC Yisang, one of the rare leftovers of 2 stars, and still being relevant to this day. Even in speedruns nowadays, it's still useful. Bring him in, get him killed, either to enable rushes through Akalja, or more commonly to push a start of Rupture onto the enemies, while bringing a backup member, which for a show might enable their status, while proccing a skill tree thanks to Lord's passive, which, combined with their own skill tree and Lord lose with an era activated, makes for one of the strongest turn you can have. You don't need to kill Yi Sang outside Rupture, but for Rupture it just makes some nice synergies. There's also the example of Hero DV Roshu, who is able to apply a lot of Tremor with their additional attacks. So that's the thing, IDs can be weaker, but if they do something unique, they'll still get played. Another example is Fastbush Yi Sang with Thinking Deluge. While Butterfly is the preferred way nowadays, it doesn't make Spicebush irrelevant. Well, I think you get it. But that's not the case of most IDs. You can excuse the first season to them not knowing what they were doing, but season 2 to 4 IDs are also much more rare. And since they have to add more IDs and don't deviate much from their template, IDs will keep suffering this. Usually, here is how it goes from previous examples. You've got IDs that help an archetype, or support, and those who benefit from it. What's the general team build rule? Except ID's design now barely makes the separation. Oh, here's an ID. It will get conditionals from the archetype and inflict 12,000 of it. So in the end, it does both roles, and the role of support, which could be played by previous IDs, is just being replaced. Now everyone's a carry, and you're a carry, and you're a carry, you as well, why not? Well, there are still some being released sometimes. I'm excited to play ADD Gregor in Modern Charge. What's Modern Charge? I'm glad you asked. I said previously that older IDs can't really compare with newer IDs for team building, so we got some very funny situations where most of the archetype is deprecated. So yeah, hello Charge. Like if I had to choose relevant Charge IDs nowadays, I could count them on one hand. And Charge is not alone, it's just that Charge, funnily enough, doesn't mix much nowadays. So hello Burn, how you doing? Oh yeah, you got some funny stuff, mixed with Tremor and Thinking, huh? Man, that's a mess. Well, at least you have your main carry. A bit too prevalent, maybe. Oh look, talking about Tremor. How's Reverb going? Reverb. Yeah, the yellow thing. No, the piece one. Yeah. Good news? Oh yeah, MD? Well, I'll come back to this later. So I'd say quite a few archetypes that didn't get the support in a while did tend to fall down. Don't misunderstand me, they are still very usable. Mostly because the conditions to clear don't tend to be very rough. The thing that hit me the most is remembering the past, when I said archetypes will be better once they receive more support. Well, it did happen, but the funny thing is some of them, which have been having more heretic raises, again like Charge, well, it did receive support. Almost all Sinners having access to Charge, but it still needs support for the newer IDs, because the older ones are outdated, so we are looping. Well, I've been talking about archetypes for a bit now, but what exactly are they? Shall we discuss about it? The prevalence of statuses in team building. Ah, what a lovely topic. I made a video about team building at some point, how team building happened in game in general, and for Limbus case as well. The thing is, it's kinda way simpler nowadays, isn't it? Too simple even. Pick a status, pick recent IDs that match it, because older ones can't help or aren't relevant, and voila. Not like there's much more to think about. There are a few exceptions. Well, one relevant idea at the moment, which is Envy with Middle. And while factions do provide synergies, they tend to be encased into one of the archetypes anyway. Like Ring or Bloodfiends for Bleed, Heishos for Rupture. Even Middle got aspired by Bleed, and Burn now for some reason. And that's it. The problem. Because at the very least, some coin power is locked behind the 7 archetypes, and often it's even more. And now, since last season, they decided to make IDs be dual wielding, with 2 statuses. The only single keyword ID in the past year after Mouthhouse was Teacup Odys. Then everyone got 2. But isn't it nice? You can now use them in more than one archetype. Okay, so first of all, this is wrong. For some, yes, but many of them just don't get any benefits from one of the archetype outside coin power, and often don't support them either. What exists are kind of sub-archetypes, like Spicebush of Butterfly for Sinking, or for Bleed having different variations with their factions, being somehow the most varied archetype at the moment. But well, they will still base themselves on the status mostly, and will try to babysit it as much as possible. Well, it's not like there's no incentive as well, since statuses are the thing dealing the most damage. Well, it depends on bosses actually. and is only really true for bleed, rupture, and sinking sometimes, since ID's damage have been catching up now. But still, that makes the existence of other archetypes pretty much impossible. Like Pierce or Slash archetypes don't really exist outside picking certain IDs in the 7 archetypes. Or stuff like Discard archetype. Huh? Yes, Discard archetype. No, yeah, it exists! Look, there's Yashin Mersault with Insight! You don't remember him, right? Or maybe you're too young. Well, yeah, that's the kind of thing that was close to exist. But I'm lying, am I not? It does exist. It and many other synergies, right? In the Mirror Dungeon. So let's talk about it. The prevalence of Mirror Dungeons in our gameplay sessions. You might have seen some people complain about MD gathering, and not understood why Middle East Cliff suddenly got burned, and why it could be a problem. I mean, it actually helps him. There must be a limit anyway, no? Because I don't think I'd like to start seeing rainbow IDs with all 7 keywords. But the main reason for our current double keyword situation is because of MD. Because, funnily enough, while Mirror Dungeon is the mode where archetypes can matter the least due to your ID's damage eventually severely outclassing status damage on the top floors, it's probably the mode that requires you to play proper keywords teams the most. Because many of the gifts that give you the most number of buffs are locked behind said keywords, mostly the fusion ones. So what if I told you you could benefit not from 1, but from 2 of those keyword buffs at once? Incredible, I know. And that's how we ended up with double keywords on every ID under the sun. Heck, for some reason even Egos got hit, though a bit less. So not only Middle East Cliff getting burned is nonsense and ruins the lore for no reason, get it? You got no reason to get burned! So not only that, but that's also a constant reminder that you're going back there, in the mines. Yes, go to the mines, Dante. But well, good question. Is it fun? Mirror Dungeons that is. Honestly? Yeah, it's very good I think. You get some really fun managing gifts, passed to maximize set combinations, ending with huge numbers, and somehow with still actual difficulty when going extreme. So it's pretty fun. 1 time. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. I'd say a couple dozen times. And then it's a chore. Because you gotta do it 52 times a year at least. Otherwise, ooh, FOMO. And I'm not even mentioning doing Infinity or Extreme for achievements. Well, Extreme 1 time for achievements, or maybe once every 3 moons, sure, it's a nice challenge. But then I have to do Infinity 10 times. And I'm not getting anything for my extra time outside of this. Like, come on PM. Spamming 5 floors should always be faster than doing 10 floors, right? So you could give me the equivalent of an additional 5 floors reward if I'm doing 10, no? No, projection rate is not it. Should I just not do it? I mean, you have tickets and EXP, I really don't want to pass that. I remember when they didn't want to add more FOMO. Well, what's done is done. Honestly, my view might be biased from slight burnout, but I don't think I forced too much to get there. Well, back to our main problem. Archetypes are prevalent in MD, and MD is what you would play most of the time. I mean, factions or types can get some buffs as well, but they would rarely be relevant enough to outvalue the keyword ones. Except some like N-Corp, but that's just to bring them up to date to the current power level-ish. So they are like fixed gifts. So outside MD you got Story, which are cinematics now, or maybe some very interesting unique fights. Railway are probably the best experiences for proper gameplay and team building, and my favorite time of the year. Even if buffs in the last one did make archetypes prevail again, but it's not necessarily always the case. And I don't mind thematic buffs based around Amnos, like getting poise buffs when beating Sleeping Bag of All Days, especially because you have the choice for other options. Hell, I find other options very interesting. But well, we got a new mode recently, so I should talk about it, right? So let's talk about Reflectrial. To be honest, I was very much looking forward to it at first. A challenging classic experience against a hardened boss. So are the keywords important? Yes, they are. Very much. In the end, the experience turns quickly into a comp check, verifying you've got the latest stuff by giving them significant buffs. Well, depends. Faction buffs differ depending on the boss, some more important than others. We've got only 2 so far, so the sample size is pretty limited. However, that's enough to draw the picture. Having the latest faction and their additions is very much encouraged, and, at the very least, using the featured keywords. Not that you can't do it without those, but you would have way more trouble to pass the required turn numbers. Unless playing like bypass everything rupture. But in the end, all this makes the main challenge more having the required IDs than the fight itself. So while they will all eventually be permanent apparently, probably bugcag ones, letting you do them at any point, they will still force you to get them, so it's not really a challenge of team building. Well, if you take it as a challenge to play a team properly, it's pretty interesting. The teams do get significant buffs though, so it doesn't entirely fulfill my wish for vanilla challenging experience. I still like it a lot, excited to see the next ones. Might give me occasions to play teams I'm not used to. Though if it keeps being the latest ones, I'd probably be playing them anyway. It just kind of forces me to dispense early, I could argue. Well, I think I've been rambling for a bit now. I know it's kind of a rant, but I still very much respect the game overall. It's just after playing for so long and being more invested in it, I'm not really sure of what are everyone's feelings about it, and how biased mine ends up being. I still seek truth in everything, and so I value fairness and objectivity a lot. So sometimes I don't know what to think about the gameplay anymore. Some people would say, Limbus Attract is mainly its story, and the gameplay ends up being somewhat lacking. And well, hold on. Yeah, no, I've got nothing, you're right. But it's kind of a shame, isn't it? Is it the best we could have? Or is it good enough already? We are humans. We learn from trying and making mistakes. And it's from ours or others that we learn how to do better. If the gameplay does end up falling off, what happened? And can't it be improved? Which is why I'm asking you a question. What do you think about Limbus gameplay and its evolution so far? I'd be curious to know. I tried to describe my gripes with the game, finding its evolution a bit disappointing in terms of originality, but if I had to add a few things, I wouldn't blame PM directly. They are keeping the game alive, and by entering the bigger gacha world, I have to quell the desire of many. With already a few dramas in their history, they decided to play safe on the designs by following a clear path. Stronger IDs, with more unique statuses for attraction, which ultimately don't amount to much more than scaling damage or status mechanics for themselves, like charge but disguised. Basing them on keywords as well, so they will always fit in a team. And overall, just making sure they can be effective in mirror dungeons. While seeing how mirror dungeons turn mostly to a management game outside of fights, I can understand El Director's appeal for an auto-battler. What's the point of playing the game anymore? A bit of a shame though. I do think it had potential for more. But maybe I'm just greedy. I still think that Ryoshu's ID, while also having somewhat mandatory team building, does leave you some room for expression in how you approach it, with the amount of sacrifice and the rest of the group. Even if the result is you launch a fight and literally cut everything. Well anyway, I'm just gonna keep making purple chains in the meantime. Oh, the feels. As good as casinos. And that's the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Final message. Well, I didn't think I would make this video, but I wanted to express myself a bit more on all those topics, and know your opinion if you wanna share it. Well, Railway is happening soon, my favorite time of the year. Looking forward to it, and next long video should be its guide. Well, you can get news from me every week on the community tab or check my streams. Anyway, see you next time, and keep your sanity high in this slow descent into the inferno.